Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and back on the pandemic projects. Yep, this is another one that came in from one of those pandemic purchases. I bought a lot of reels, a LOT lot, but also several of them included in that lot. This one is a Hurricane XL70, so it's a large first generation graphite reel. It was made in Korea, and probably in the 80s. And the reason I say that is these are big old honking reels. The early ones had the square framing, whether it was Hurricane or Shakespeare or anybody that was putting them out at the first thing. Those injection moldings were kind of this. I've seen the brand Hurricane, excuse me, under two pieces. I don't know the company histories. I'm going to have to go look at it. One of them, Olympic, actually branded a Hurricane. And Calypso also showed the Hurricane and the Beachcomber in their line. So I don't know if one got sold to the other or if it's just coincidence that they both called their brands Hurricane. This is 70 size. It's saltwater. Most likely in the early 1980s, you would have found this reel as part of a rod and reel combination. And chances are it would have been sold in a general convenience store like a Walmart or a Kmart or something like that, attached to a fishing pole as opposed to a standalone reel. So we're going to get started on this. I'll show you what kind of defined that era. This one's got a little bit of a grind, and it sounds like maybe you can use a shim. We'll try a little bit of that. We'll show you how it's made, and if you have one of these, you'll learn how to tune it up and get it ready to go fishing again, because this one's got a lot of fishing life left in it. Overall, it's a relatively clean reel. One of the things you tended to find with these reels is that these reel feet would break off for whatever reason. Now it shouldn't here. I mean, it's as thick as can be on the foot side of it here, but these things seem to be a little bit suspect. So the handle is a through handle. You saw me remove the screw. You also saw me put it into a parts tray. It's part of the kind of business as usual for me, or my MO, if you will. I removed the spool. We will get into the spool and take a look there. If I remember, this spool has felt washers in it, so I'll show you how to service felt washers. And let's take the body off. The reel, I don't believe is that sophisticated a reel. It says ball bearing, so the ball bearing would be up top here in the rotor. And we should see underneath that, we should see some bushings on each side of the main gear. And kind of violating what I always do here. One of the things I always do is put these on the table just to make sure that the side plate screws are all the same. And those of you that have watched my channel, you kind of know from time to time we find reels out there that have different size screws, and if it is, you just want to note where those screws came from. So pay attention, if you will. You also notice, those longtime viewers know that I have a glove that I wear on my non-working hand, and I wish that I could have one on my working hand, but I just fumble with it. And quite honestly, with this pandemic going on out there, they're telling us to wear gloves, and I've got some gloves that I keep in the car, and boy, they are just as cumbersome as can possibly be. Try to get your wallet out, but listen to me complain, right? That's nothing we should be concerned about at the moment in terms of getting through this pandemic. And I've begun saying it, shouting out, if you're a first responder, shout out to you for all the good work that you're doing there. Okay, I've pulled that off. We should be able to remove the side plate, which we are. You'll notice when we take this off, I said bushings, and yeah, we got a bushing here. This bushing has got two tabs on it. It's got one on each side here. And in order to be successful upon reinstalling, you need to make sure that that bushing with the tabs go into the opposite slots here. So let's just take that off right now so that we don't forget. And I'll show you that that goes in here, like such. And quite honestly, it may be, I don't know the history of this reel, but it may be that that sound that we're saying about a shim might even be that these things are coming loose in the channel there. Okay, so with that aside, now we're going to bring this down to the lower stroke here so that we can get to the crosswind block. This is kind of a typical setup for a reel at the time. We have a big gear. In this case, I'm going to say this ratio here is probably a 4-to-1 or 4.2-to-1. It's not that big a gear. Drives a pinion gear. On the back end of this, there will be a drive for the crosswind gear, which is below here. and that's going to force your spool up and down, as you saw when I rotated that. So we're going to take out the screw here. I also like to advise folks, if you're new to this, pull a schematic. Well, I don't know where you get the schematic for this reel, but take pictures along the way. That way, as you take pieces and parts out, you kind of know where to find them. Well, with that screw out there, that screw is holding it in, you can remove the axle shaft. And once you remove the axle shaft, then you can remove the main gear. And here's something of interest. If you're doing this, you need to pay attention here. If you're fixing it, if you're not fixing it, don't worry terribly about it. But there's a wedge shape on this anti-reverse override, and that wedge shape corresponds with a plastic clip that's on the back of the main gear here that rides in that channel. And when you go to reinstall, that V shape has got to be on both sides of this wedge shape over here. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. All right, we just have some cleanup to do in here, I think. We'll remove this. I can notice that there's some accumulated grease and junk and the like, so let's just clean that up. Overall, this is typical of what you would see in the 1980s. You got a reel here that's probably over-engineered. Folks have gotten better with the graphite technologies and the pieces and the parts that kind of go along with it. It's kind of miniaturized, but at the end of the day, it's about a big gear driving a little gear, and as long as these things are kept well maintained, then they can last a long time. All right, there's a screw holding the crosswind block in here, so I'm taking that out right now. And then I'm going to pull the crosswind block. Probably can just grab it with my hand, but as long as I have a pliers here, we'll just clean up the channel behind it. I would say that this retailed with a fishing pole, and that it would be moderately or budget priced, if you will, at the time compared to some of the other reels that were on the market in that era. But that's okay. So folks, always ask me, what kind of reel should I buy? And I tell them it's all about what your goals are. And if you're not going to fish heavily, if you're just getting into the sport, if you're unsure as to whether you're going to like it or not, then don't go out and spend a lot of money. It's just as good to go out and buy a budget-priced or a value-priced reel, and then experiment with it, find out what you like and don't like, make a list of those factors, and then the next season maybe, or as you start to fish more frequently, then you can come back and figure out what you really want to spend your money on. Okay, I'm leaving these on the desk. I normally would put them in a tray, but I'm going to put them right back in pretty quickly. I just want to go up top. It says ball bearing, so we should have a ball bearing in here. And we're going to go remove this now. This is a 14 millimeter nut for those of you that are playing along with me at home. We're going to remove that counterclockwise, so that's a traditional threading on this. There are some rotors that don't have traditional, you go against it. Might as well pull them out. There's 3 screws here that hold a collar, and those collars hold the bearing. So again, right on my table here. These are steel screws. They're not stainless steel screws. How do I know that? I have a magnetic tip on my screwdriver here, and that's telling me that they're steel screws. And if they're steel screws, that's one way that you get the economies of the reel. I just had there's a little V-clip here that holds the anti-reverse together. It's a little spring. You want to make sure that that spring doesn't slip and get lost somewhere. All right, we're going to pull out the pinion gear. This reel's clean. It hasn't been used much. Maybe that's a little bit of what we're saying here in terms of how to go address your needs. If you're not going to use the reel very much, then you don't need all the modern conveniences of 10-ball bearings and all the other stuff. You can live with maybe a little bit harder to crank. And like I like to say, the fish doesn't know what reel is on the other side, nor does it really care. It really just cares about getting off your line. But if you don't get hung up on egos or I gotta haves, just pay attention to your own needs and not worry about what other people think. All right, so we have the pinion gear is out. You saw me butter that up underneath, but we'll go do it again. Check the bearing. I'm just going to put the bearing back on. We'll give it a spin. And it works fine. And that's another thing, the size of the bearing in the 80s versus today's standards. This is a shielded bearing. It's not a sealed bearing, so you can put a little oil on it. It'll work it, and you can spin it. That'll help it come along. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mount that into the holder. Press down on the bearing to make sure it's in the case completely. Grab that collar and line that up with the sides. Grab those screws. Now that is one advantage to steel screws. You don't drop them as much. The disadvantage is they will rust. And on a reel that's a saltwater reel, that's going to require that you hose it down. But you should be hosing down your reels after use, especially in salt water, to get the salt element and the micro sand off of them. Because if you don't, it's going to eat away at the reel. Now in this case, there's a plastic body or a graphite body. I'm not even sure which, quite honestly. But if you have a metal case, and we've all seen these, like the Silver Series pens and the Silver Series Daiwas, they were metal cases. And if you didn't take care of business by hosing them down at the end, then you were in trouble. All right, there's that wedge we were talking about. Just want to grab a little cotton swab, just get these the extra grease off. We're going to check the front and back of these to make sure that those teeth are okay, and the small gear as well as the big gear that comes off of this. Going to use the fishing reel grease. In this case, this grease is Penn's precision reel grease, but any fishing manufacturer's grease will be fine. And then when we go to reinstall this, well, we got to put the crosswind gear back in. Let's do that first. Again, check the back, it's clean. Check the teeth, make sure that they're all there, because if they don't, you're going to get a skip. You put a little bit of grease on the sides and a little bit of grease into the teeth themselves. And you don't have to load every tooth with that. It's certainly not needed. And then we'll just put this screw back in here. And tighten that one up. Sometimes you'll have these crosswind gears with a screw in it. Sometimes you'll have these crosswind gears where they have bearings in them, kind of the upper end models. And sometimes they'll just rest on a stud. But regardless, just know to follow the way you took them out. That's the best thing to do, and you can go from there. All right, let's put this main gear back in now. Now you want to look for that V. It has to mate with that. So what you're going to do is you're going to line it up visually. And I don't know if the camera can see this. I'm having enough trouble seeing it. But there you go. And you can tell right away if you just move it, you'll see that the arm is either moving or it's not moving. In this case, it's moving just fine. All right, we're going to grab that bail again, make sure it's clean underneath, which it is. We can, I don't want to lose that little set. We can put a drop of oil here where the trip lever is for your bail. You can move your bail a little bit if you like and make sure that the oil works into it. I'm going to grab the rotor and put that up top. You need to install the rotor before you can put the axle back in. Now this had a little hum to it. I don't know if there's going to be enough to that with the lubrication, or if it's going to be an alignment of gears thing or the like. Guess you won't know until we put it back together, and we'll see. So there's one shim on here now. I'm just going to take a chance and put a second shim on. I have shims left over from other reels. These are the shims. They're really small, but they do make a difference. And let's see, that one will fit on there. So I'm going to use that just as an extra shim, see if that doesn't make the difference there. All right, we put a little bit of grease into the cavity in the crosswind block. I'm going to put the crosswind block over the stud now. And now we can grab the shaft. You can put a little bit of grease on that shaft. Don't put a lot. That's because there's a tight tolerance here, and it's just going to press off whatever you put on in excess. All right, and we want to line this up. You can see you just pushed through and you made it. In this case, it's pretty easy to get this one done because it's a flat side. It's hard to do it incorrectly. I'm going to use a pin to center the hole so that I can put the screw in. It's going to hold that assembly together. This one is a Phillips head. Let's tighten these down. And if you don't want to wait, you can hold the main gear. You got to hold it, otherwise it's going to pop off. And you can give it a spin just to make sure it's spinning okay, which it is. All right. This has got some grease in there. Let's just put a little bit more grease onto the shaft here so that it spins freely. And that's just going to go inside that plastic bushing. Brass or plastic on the bushings doesn't really matter. Brass would wear less, but again, in this situation here, there's not a lot going on here in terms of usage or anticipated usage. So they went with the plastic, and again, that's another reason why you can get an economy in the pricing of this reel. You use steel screws. You didn't use stainless or brass. You've used plastic. I imagine it's a plastic case. I keep saying graphite first generation. It may be a plastic case that cuts down on cost. One burring versus 2, 3, 4, or 5 burrings cuts down on cost. And we'll see what's up top, but I'm thinking we got felt drag washers, and that would probably cut down on the cost as well. So these are those engineered screw heads. Sometimes the Phillips head works okay, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, I'm going to switch over to a flat-bladed screwdriver, but I got 2 in, so it looks like we'll be okay. Now hopefully that little shim takes that little bit of a hum out of it. If not, it just may be the nature of the beast, given that this reel is 25 years old, whatever it is. We'll see. Okay. So put the handle back on. And as I'm looking, I have my parts tray, and I noticed that I have my one little tie-down screw that I didn't put in. That's the beauty of a parts tray. If you lay it out on a table, you sometimes miss it. But in this case, I see that little screw right here. Probably everybody else has been watching my parts tray too. That little screw ties down the nut here. That kind of helps it from turning over. So let's just put that right back in now. Again, that's the other joy of a magnetic screw there. At least I can reach in there and get that done. Easier said. So the reel was probably, I don't know, let's guess, try to backdate ourselves here, probably a $19 reel at the time. If you were probably going to try and buy one today, it would probably be in the $30 range. Again, intended for lighter use. And let's see what we got here now. So there's a spring, X spring. It's riding in a groove. You can probably see the groove here. You want to pull that spring out. Hold it because it is a spring. Put that into the parts tray. And let's see what we have underneath here. Yep, we have felt washers. And quite honestly, they got a lot of oil on them. So the oil keeps them flexible. That's the whole idea behind oiling of a washer. We don't even have to do anything here. I don't know when the last time this was serviced, but there's a puddle of oil in there. We alternate the felt with the metal washers. There's a middle washer, which is called the eared washer. That always goes in the middle. All right, yeah, this one's in good condition. So I don't know if somebody who had this reel just decided to load up on it, but regardless, it's done properly and it's good. Always check the drags. unless you don't use them, I guess. If you're always okay with the drags always being in the on position, I guess you can just slam them down and not worry about them too much. But check the drags as part of your normal service. If you're spending this much time doing the reel, you might as well take a little bit extra and do it all. It's just not that hard. And then know where to get the replacement parts if you need them. And in this case, that would be difficult for this reel. So if those drags were in bad condition, I don't know. I'd probably have to try and find a substitute somewhere, because I'm sure you can't get parts for this since we don't even know who was making it. All right, let's give it a try. You know what? It's a little smoother, so I think that extra shim probably made a difference there. And that just that works with the alignment of the main gear. Let's see if we got the bail working. We do. No problem with putting a little bit of oil into each of the seams of the bail. It's not going to do anything. There's only springs under there, but that'll just help the plastic on plastic lubrication at that point. So there you go. Hurricane 70, typical of the period. Our anti-reverse is working. We knew that, but that's where that that little V that we had to match up to. That's how that we know that's working, and it's going to make a good reel for entry-level fishing in the surf or in salt water, and we'll get to the point of passing this along to somebody. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. If you have a fishing reel that needs repair, I have a business card that follows. You certainly can contact me and I'll give you the details, as I do repair by mail. Please, we're in a pandemic. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep your distance, wear masks, do whatever it is that's being asked of us, and we'll all get through this a lot quicker, and we'll all be back to fishing reels soon. So with that, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.